Pleasure to introduce Chris Laheath. Chris is a formal practitioner who was a member here in Connecticut a while back, and has since received his ministerial degree from the Holmes Institute and is co-founder and director at Soul Evolution Collaborative. Chris's message today is called Seeing Beauty, Feeling Grace. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. What a pleasure. One thing, just to be in integrity, I want to point out that I haven't actually graduated yet. I'm still in the process, but it's getting so close, so close. So I appreciate you. Okay, so today, starting with the monthly theme, we do the global themes for the Centers for Spiritual Living, so that all over the world, people are focusing on the same idea. And that's a pretty cool concept, especially with beliefs in the collective consciousness, how we're all in this together. It's all the one mind. So it's a powerful experience that we get to have. So this monthly view, I love it, or the monthly theme, the breathe in the view, asking us to take a moment to pause and look back at how far we've come, and then to start to think about where we're going in our future. That is so much on my mind lately, is all looking forward. How are we creating this? We talk a lot in the Centers for Spiritual Living about creating a world that works for everyone. And I really feel like globally, we are at that cusp right now of really making a shift to do that. There's different change. So I think that this monthly theme is so perfectly on time right now. Now, the weekly theme, or the weekly title, is called Seeing Beauty, Feeling Grace. Now, this idea, it was the talk by J.J. Gioducci, who's just a wonderful, recently graduated minister herself, has this idea to, again, look within and take this pause and see how far we've come and recognize the grace, the spirit that's within us. So today I'm going to talk about a couple things. I'm going to invite us to look back at some moments and then to relive them deeply and move into that feeling of grace. And then from there, I'm going to demonstrate how it's all in the one mind. Everything that happens is in that one mind, and the power that that has. So then I can take that idea, we can take that idea and talk about how to experience more fully that, whatever you want to call it, spirit, grace, God, the infinite being, source, nature, the universe, all those things. It's whatever you want to call it, but we can intentionally and actively experience that more. That's that grace that we're talking about. And through that, that's where our creative power really comes from. So starting back right now, I want to invite us, if you will, to go back in time and think of a moment when it was just a really great memory, something that made you really just come alive, made you feel valuable, made you tap into a little bit that you are something bigger, that whatever it is, if it helps to close your eyes, lean into it. Is there a memory that comes up to where you just felt good about something, someone, some event, and then let it open up? And then take your awareness while you're imagining that into the center of your heart, right in your chest, and imagine as if there's a nose right over your heart and you're breathing into it as you're imagining this event as if you were actually there in that moment again. Take a moment to let that deepen and develop so that you're really into that moment. Maybe a gentle smile comes over your face. Now, I hate to cut it short, but right there where you're at, like, we're tapping into this emotion that is there, and it's emotion, the feeling where we're really into our deeper nature. So now, if you're comfortable, you can allow your eyes to come back. And now this idea of like those highs that we have, those really high moments, if we look back over our lives, we probably had and I know, speaking for myself, a broad spectrum of those really highs and some really lows, and then lots of in-betweens. And so I don't want anybody to go into a dark place that might get them triggered. So as little or as much as you're willing to look in, just take a general overview of your life, of everything that got you up to this moment right now. And take a second to just acknowledge and appreciate, one, like how far we've come. And even if you're like right now in a place where you're not in your highest place, to still just recognize and look back at how much we go through in our lives and we're still here. Like personally, I've had so many moments in my life where I felt like just giving up, and I'm here. I've always come through. And it's really, I have to give so much credit to the Science of Mind and Centers for Spiritual Living, because those low moments that I used to experience pretty frequently and used to be pretty helpless in, and not realize how much control and power I had by tapping into this bigger thing, that once I was able to learn that the idea of our perception and the thoughts that we tell, the thinking that we do, once I was able to learn how much that influences our life, it really has cut down the frequency of all those lower moments. And it's also kind of raised them up. Like I have my high moments now and still have low moments, but if I'm able to look back over my whole life, like my low moments now are higher than my high moments used to be before I learned the power of our mind, the power of our thoughts, the power of the one mind. So just taking that in, if you can take kind of a general snapshot for yourself as you do this, it brings this richness to life of that full spectrum. And that's really what we're here for. So as you're able to do that, if you're able to tap into those emotions and take it in, for me, like this last week and a half, when I've been working on this theme for today, I've had so many moments where I'm allowing myself to really lean into this with this feeling. And what happens is you get that goosebumps, the hair on your arm stands up, you get the tingles, the body shudders, like when you're really into it. Like it's powerful. And that when you're experiencing that, that's when you're more into the spirit than in the body. When Ernest Holmes, tells us that the veil is thin, well, we're kind of always teetering in between. But in those moments, like right now, all the hairs on my arm right now are just wide awake, because that's spirit loves it when we are savoring, when we're taking it in and recognizing. And now that's really the whole point of being alive in this physical world. Like we are the eyes and the ears and the body of whatever that thing is, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't change by changing the name of it. It's just the thing itself, all of it, that life. That is why we are here, is to experience for our behalf and for its behalf through that one collective. Now, it's a powerful moment when you were able to get into that place where you're feeling the hairs standing up. So in the Science of Mind, we teach a form of affirmative prayer that we call spiritual mind treatment. And Ernest Holmes he would say that the steps 1 and 2, or the first two, but the way that he describes spiritual mind treatment, those first 2 steps are the most important, which for anybody that's not familiar, the first step is just recognizing that there is something bigger than us. And the second step is called unification, where we just recognize it's that thing that's bigger than us is everything. There's nothing outside of it. So that means that you are that I am that. And then we call that unification. So really, the more deeply you get in those first 2 steps, everything that comes after that is more powerful. So when you are in that moment of the activation where you're the goosebumps are up and you're just really feeling that, it's like a vibration within you, that is one of the best moments to do your spiritual mind treatment, to do your affirmative prayer. Going from that state, those first 2 steps, you're already there. And that's like really what the whole first 2 steps are for. And maybe we're not always able to get there, but when you do find yourself there, it's a powerful state to be. And this also goes hand in hand with the creativity, ingenuity, all the ideas. Like if you're a musician or an artist, when you're in that state where you're, Greg Braden calls it being in your heart space, when you really have the the goosebumps up and you're feeling it, that you're in your heart space. If you are a creative type, like that is one of the best moments to ask yourself what it is that you want to create. What is wanting to come through you? What's that next song going to be? Visualization, if you're one that does vision boards and things like that, when you're in that state, that is the perfect time to visualize and manifest what it is that you're moving forward to. So the more times that we get that, it's really a powerful moment. Now, I want to now describe how everything that happens, it happens in mind. We know that in the beginning, they say in the beginning was, the Word, and the Word was God. It all happens in mind. When we create in our own lives, it always begins with the thought. But I want to take that a step further and say all experience, everything that happens really only happens in one place, which is in the mind. I'll use the example of physical pain. Say if you get your finger cut, you get your finger cut, sensory cells there send a signal up through your central nervous system, up through your arm. It travels up into your brain where it's received, where then it's translated and transmitted through chemicals and electricity to a different part of the brain that registers it and interprets it and says, that's pain. It's all happening in the brain. And what's amazing is I used to work with somebody that had a condition where she was unable to feel pain, which is actually kind of dangerous because she could break bones, she could cut herself, she could sprain an ankle and not know how badly it was injured because she didn't have the part of her brain that processes that wasn't sending the signal to let her know. And this was her whole entire lifetime. So it was dangerous. She'd be working on a sprained ankle and not realize that it's just getting worse and worse. So it's interesting how powerful like that experience is there in the mind. One other experience of this that I love is the idea of if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, the first time I ever got an answer that I was like satisfied with, I heard it was Deepak Chopra talking about it. And he describes it. He's like, if nobody's there to hear it, then no, it does not make a sound. Because what sound, the sound is essentially it's acoustic waves, which is a way of, it's between compression and decompression, transmission of particles, but it's just waves going through the air and they travel all directions and we pick them up. They go into our ear, go to the eardrum where it vibrates the eardrum in a specific way that creates a signal that goes to a different part of our brain that interprets it, that processes it. It might go to another part of the brain. I'm not exactly sure the whole intricacies, but it's all there in brain. So one, without something to receive the vibrations, and two, the mind that's able to interpret it. So without anybody being there, it's just waves of decompression, compression and decompression. And so there's no sound. It has to all happen in mind. Now, Ernest Holmes, this is one of my favorite quotes of Ernest Holmes. This is from The Science of Mind. If you're curious, it's on page 394, the fourth paragraph in. And I always like to change it to make it more gender inclusive, more modern, up to date. So I'll do that. A person's mind is the mind of God functioning at the level of that person's understanding of their place in the universe, which is a child of the divine. And then that person contacts the mind of God at the center of their own being. We have to go within that center, that the mind of God is right here within. And then it is useless to seek elsewhere. There's nowhere else, everywhere else, but we have to start within mind is where it all is. And then the last sentence that I love is the highest God and the innermost God is one God. There's nothing outside of it. So now this idea of, we hear, meditation, mindfulness gurus who say it's all about being in the moment, be in the now, and be present, fully present. And this is what this monthly theme is asking us to do, is to just pause and take it in a little bit and just be fully present. So to do this, we can engage our mind into those moments. Now, to help give an example of how we can really savor moments, I'm going to use an example of a mindful eating exercise. So if you've never done this exercise, I recommend after the service is over today, just Google mindful eating exercise and you'll get a good set of descriptions. It's a very commonly mindfulness technique that's out there, but I'm going to give a little brief, synopsis of it so that you get an idea of what I want to talk about with this. So mindful eating, the exercise I want to talk about would use just a raisin, some small piece of something of food, and you would just have it sitting there on the table. And we're just going to look at that raisin. And we're going to take like a minute to do this, to look at each individual wrinkle and fold. Is there any shine? And just really taking it in as if we've never seen a raisin before. And then we'll touch it and we'll feel it in our fingers. And what does it feel like? And you can even, do it through your ears. Does it make any sound when I roll it in my fingers? Does it have any smell? Just this raisin, this tiny little thing. Then you put it in your mouth and you don't bite yet. You just put it in there and you notice, is there any taste that you get right away? Any feeling there? What does it feel like on your tongue, on the roof of your mouth? And like each of these steps, you're taking a good 30 seconds to a minute. Then you take a bite, just bite into it, but you're not going to chew, just one single bite, and see the flood, the release of this flavor. And then after that, we'll chew it a little more and feel that texture as we chew it, and notice that, again, the bigger flavor as it goes on. So you get the idea. If you've never done this, like, it makes a raisin taste 100 times more amazing than any raisin you've ever had. And I'm not kidding. The first time I did it, I was blown away at the power that's here in our mind of awareness and perception. And that's what we are doing here. So when you eat that raisin, like, it's no different. Like, what happened in your mouth is no different than all the other raisins you've eaten in your life, except maybe the amount of time that it took. But the experience, 100-fold, is all in your awareness and what you're focusing on. So that's this monthly and weekly theme, is to look at moments, take time to just sit and really lean into them from that mindfulness aspect, to feel it and enlarge it until you get those goosebumps activated and you're really flowing and you're in that moment. Now, just the way that we cut the finger, it's the sensory cells that send that signal up. Well, the mind of spirit, or whatever you want to call it, we are the sensory cells. We are the cells of that one mind for it to experience. Before creation of physical reality, there was just consciousness that was aware and knew it was infinite in potential, the way that we can use our own imagination and come up with anything. You can imagine the craziest, wildest thing ever. It's in imagination, it's there. But that's the way in the original consciousness, infinite potential. But the only way to know that and experience it is to create this physical reality out of its own mental substance, and create reality with all these little sensory cells of individuals that get to interact with one another, feel and sense. So as being the sensory cells, when we're just kind of like blowing through life, we're not doing justice as the sensory cells. If we're not taking time to fully experience and enjoy, spirit is not getting that same experience. So this is our reminder to really, the more times in a day, in a week, that we can remember to just stop or slow down or take it in. And sometimes, I know life is busy. We may not be able to slow down, but we can still be present in those moments. I have to wash the dishes so that then I can get the dogs out and then I can go to bed. And so normally, I'm 3 steps ahead of the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm missing what I'm doing. And we put these labels on, like, what is good, what is bad. And so we have this idea, like, I just want to be through Friday at work so I can be on the weekend. We spend a whole week in a state of really not wanting to be there, just looking forward to this other time. Well, we're here in life, and this is an amazing time and experience. And how much of it do we wish away? I wish this was over so that I could be doing this. But it's all part of the big thing. And it's our gift when we learn to be mindful and appreciative of what we're doing all the time, because it's an amazing gift. And it's only, when we're talking about eternity, the infinite, this is such a small blip on the screen. Savor it, open it up. And the good, the bad, is that full spectrum that helps us appreciate the highs and the lows. Eckhart Tolle tells the story about the movie, The Titanic. And he says, now imagine this, if James Cameron produced this movie that a bunch of people got on a boat in England and they set sail across the Atlantic, and then they pulled in a few weeks later into New York City, the end. You know, who's going to go see that? Nobody's going to go see that movie. It's all about that contrast and the extremes. And so we really have a lot of power here, a lot of power that actually brings a beauty in to those challenging moments, as well as the really awesome moments. Just bring in that beauty, and then it's a grace, an appreciation that it's all spirit. And that's what we're here for. So the more that we lean into those moments, the more you're connecting in spirit, the more that you bring it into the presence around us. So we need to constantly remind ourselves to find the beauty. It's always there. We just have to find it, stop and look at it, and then really see it. To see it, until then we feel that grace.